I was 18 at the time, and it happened during a college camping trip to the Smokies, a trip I only agreed to because my roommate insisted it would be a vibe. There were 6 of us. Me, my roommate, Rylan, his girlfriend Isolde, her sharp-tongued friend Vesper, and 2 seniors who carried themselves with the kind of arrogance that clung like cologne, treating the woods as if they owned them. Ephraim and Calder. We hiked the Deep Creek Trail, a winding path choked with rhododendron and pine, far enough from Bryson City. By the time we reached the campsite, a small clearing half a mile off the main trail, hemmed in by skeletal hemlocks, the sun had dipped behind the peaks, staining the sky the color of a bruise. Ephraim and Calder took charge immediately. They'd done this before, they said, knew the Smokies, and knew every trail there. While the rest of us fumbled with tents, they built a fire pit with military precision, stacking stones in a tight circle and feeding it with deadfall. "Gotta respect the mountain," Ephraim muttered, though I wasn't sure if he meant the fire or himself. Night fell fast in the hollows. By 9 p.m. the temperature dropped, and the fire became our sun. We huddled around it, passing a bag of marshmallows and a dented flask of bourbon. The woods felt alive, not in the way you read about in poems, but like something ancient and watchful. That's when Ephraim decided to tell the story. "Y'all ever heard of the Brishka?" he asked, leaning forward so the firelight carved shadows under his eyes. His voice was low, gravelly, the kind that makes you lean in even when you want to run. Isolde giggled nervously. "Sounds like Ia." Calder shot her a glare. "A legend. She's real." He paused, letting the crackle of the fire fill the silence. "Back in the day, kids started vanishing in these mountains. Tribes would find their buddies drained of blood, necks slit clean. No tracks, no signs, just corpses." Rylan snorted. "Dude, we're not 12. Save it for Halloween." But Ephraim didn't blink. "They say she looks like an old woman, harmless. Walks up to kids, asks for help gathering herbs. But her skin's stone, see? And she's got this." He held up his right hand, index finger curled like a claw. One finger, long as a knife. Razor sharp. She gets close, runs her hands through your hair, real gentle, then slice. Cuts your neck open, sucks the blood out. Leaves you hollow as a gourd. The marshmallow I'd been roasting caught fire, the sudden flare making Vesper yelp. No one laughed. "Bullshit," Rylan said. Calder smirked. "Tell that to the hikers who went missing last fall. Rangers never found them. Just their tents slashed open." The woods seemed to lean closer. I didn't sleep after that. Couldn't. My tent felt flimsy as tissue paper, the nylon walls trembling in the wind. Every snap of a twig, every whisper of leaves became monster breath. I checked my phone. 10:47 p.m. The others had passed out hours ago, their snores mingling with the creek's distant murmur. Then, at around 11, the hissing started. Soft at first, like air escaping a tire. Then louder, sharper, a sound that didn't belong. I froze, my sleeping bag clutched to my chest. Outside, the moonlight painted the tent's fabric a sickly silver. Something moved. A shadow, tall and hunched, sliding across the nylon. "It's just the wind," I told myself. "A branch." But branches don't hiss. The shadow paused, silhouetted against the tent. I could make out a shape, a head, shoulders, an arm raised. And then a finger. Long, twisted, pressing against the fabric, dragging downward with a slow, deliberate scrape. My throat closed. I wanted to scream, to bolt, but my body had turned to stone. The finger kept moving, tracing a jagged line toward the zipper. "She's real. She's here. She's..." The zipper jerked. I exploded out of the tent, screaming like an animal. I didn't think, just ran, blind and gasping, toward the fire pit. Behind me, laughter erupted, raw and cruel. Oh my God, look at his face. Ephraim and Calder staggered out of the trees, clutching their sides. Calder waved a stick with a knitted glove taped to the end of the finger. Ephraim held a phone, its flashlight still on. You should have seen yourself. Ephraim wheezed. Pissed your pants yet? The others stumbled out of their tents, confused. Isolde took one look at me kneeling in the dirt, tears streaming and rounded on Ephraim. What the hell is wrong with you? But I didn't hear the rest. I just sat there, shaking, while the forest spun around me. They never apologized. Not really. They thought it was funny. Hilarious, even. Ephraim was still laughing the next morning, kicking dirt over the dead fire, his breath fogging in the crisp air. Dude, you should have seen your face, he wheezed, doubling over. Calder wiped tears from his eyes, shaking his head. I swear, man, I thought you were gonna piss yourself. I didn't respond. It wasn't the joke itself, the stupid stick they'd planted behind my tent, the shadow that had loomed just long enough to send me bolting into the woods. It wasn't even the way they'd howled when I stumbled back into camp, wide-eyed and shaking. It was the moment before. The way the shadow moved too smooth, too intentional. The sound like a hiss. For one awful second, I thought I might have died from sheer terror. It was the most horrifying moment of my life. I was truly scared, and the whole experience felt too unsettling to be just a joke. We packed up early. The laughter faded, but the unease didn't. On the hike back, no one really talked. Maybe they were tired. Maybe the joke wasn't as funny in the daylight. At the trailhead, Calder clapped me on the shoulder, smirking. Come on, man. The Brishka won't eat you. I forced a chuckle. It's been years. I still dream about it. I was the one who found the damn cabin. Scrolling through rental sites late at night, half bored, half curious. I stumbled on it cheap, isolated, tucked deep in the Smoky Mountains outside some nowhere town called Cosby, Tennessee. The pictures were all slightly out of focus, like whoever took them had shaky hands. The description oozed with forced charm, rustic retreat, nature lover's paradise, full seclusion. I told Mom it was too cheap, too deep in the woods, too wrong. Oh, come on, Sammy, she chirped. It'll be an adventure. So we booked it. It took us 5 hours to get there. 5 hours of back roads and gas station snacks, Bryn kicking the back of my seat while Dad muttered about Google Maps screwing us again. By the time we hit Cosby, if you could even call it a town. No stoplights. No chain stores. Just a scattering of houses and a gas station that looked abandoned until a guy in a flannel shirt stepped out to stare at us. The GPS died 3 miles from our turnoff. The road twisted like it was made for something other than cars, a narrow, gravel thing swallowed by the forest. Mom gripped the cabin retreats, printouts. Then we saw it. The rusted mailbox with hideaway number 12 slashed in peeling paint. The cabin looked like it was rotting from the inside out. Logs blackened with age, and a single bulb flickered above the door. Cozy, huh? Dad forced a grin. I didn't smile back. Mom cranked the thermostat, while Bryn sprinted upstairs, calling dibs on the cool room. I helped Dad haul groceries into the kitchen, our footsteps echoing too loud on warped floorboards. That's when I saw it, the guest book. Thick, leather, yellowed pages, sitting on the coffee table like a warning. I flipped it open. Don't stay after dark. July 2018. Muddy footprints on the porch. October 2019. A chill licked up my spine. I slammed it shut. Then the things started to change from the first day. That first night, the power cut out at around 2:30 a.m. We were barely an hour into sleep when the power cut out. It wasn't a flicker. It was gone. I shot up, heart hammering. From across the room, I heard Evan whisper, "Sammy." I fumbled for my phone, using the weak blue light to navigate out of bed. In the hallway, Mom and Dad were already moving, their voices low and urgent. "The breakers," Dad muttered. "Gotta check the damn breakers." He made it to the door and stopped. "Locked?" Mom asked, her voice tight. "Wasn't locked before," he said. He twisted the knob hard again. Nothing. Then the door swung open. No one moved. I felt my breath hitch in my throat. He went out, reset the breaker, and the lights blinked back on. But that feeling, the one that had been gnawing at me since we got there, only got worse. The next morning, a maintenance guy showed up, some wiry old man, said he was just checking in, making sure everything was working okay. When Mom casually asked if the power thing happened often. Just for a second. Then he shrugged. "Hey, yeah, you're not the first," he admitted, scratching at his jaw. "Some folks say it just cuts out. No reason. Just happens." Before he left, I flipped through the guest book again. The entries got worse the further back they went. Feeling watched all night. Saw something on the porch. Wet footprints. No rain. Never coming back. That night was worse. I woke up to a sound I couldn't place. A soft, rhythmic click. My heart lurched. I sat up, listening. The air felt wrong. Heavy. Click. The living room light. Turning on. Turning off. I grabbed my phone, the screen lighting up my shaking hands. 3:12 a.m. I crept toward the hallway, barely breathing. The rest of the cabin was silent. I peeked around the corner. Nothing. The switch wasn't moving. The light was off. But the moment I exhaled click, I ran back to my room, locked the door, and didn't sleep that night. The next morning, I convinced Mom and Dad to leave. I made up some bullshit about Evan feeling sick. Mom didn't argue. I think she felt it too, and that same morning we left the cabin without a second thought, forgetting that we had paid for the entire week. 2 months later, I found the stories online. Other guests, other families, all reporting the same damn things. Doors locking, lights flickering. The feeling of being watched. One post chilled me to the bone. It was a woman who'd stayed there years ago. She'd woken up one night to see muddy footprints leading from the front door to her bed. Some articles. Local man vanishes from rental cabin. 54-year-old mechanic Earl Dobbs reported missing after staying at hideaway number 12. Search teams found no trace. Neighbors claim previous guests reported paranormal activity footprints, power outages. We never went back there, and now many years have passed. Some places that are abandoned often have paranormal activity, and I swear it's true. At some point in life, each of us has experienced something like this. That happened to us 2 years back. We were on the camping and hiking trip. We'd hiked 8 miles into the Smokies that day. Me, Jess, Danny, and his cousin Marco. The plan was 3 nights camping near Charlie's Bunyan, a jagged rock outcrop that looks like God took a cleaver to the ridge. The trail was steep and slippery with wet October leaves. It was the kind of hike that made your legs ache and your backpack feel heavier with every step. But the views, they were incredible, almost enough to make the tough climb worth it. Almost. We set up camp around 4 p.m., just off the Appalachian Trail in a patch of dirt that smelled like wet pennies. The guys were rookies. Jess kept fumbling the tent poles, Marco forgot the fuel canister, and Danny spent 20 minutes trying to light a fire with damp matches before I snatched them out of his hands. "City kids," I muttered, but honestly, I liked the company. The Smokies get lonely, and I wasn't about to play Bear Grylls solo. Night fell fast. We scarfed down undercooked beans, cracked lukewarm beers, and swapped stories around the fire. Marco tried to scare Jess with some TikTok ghost crap, but the woods didn't need his help. There were plenty of live coyotes yipping in the hollows, branches creaking like old bones. By midnight, the fog rolled in thick, swallowing the firelight. Jess tapped out first, then Danny. Marco lasted till 1 a.m. before passing out mid-sentence. But me? I couldn't sleep. Sometime around 7 a.m., I woke up. Maybe it was the cold creeping through my sleeping bag, or maybe it was just instinct. But I sat up and looked around. The shelter was quiet, the others bundled in their bags, their breath rising in soft clouds. Outside, a thick fog had rolled in, smothering the mountains in a ghostly haze. I don't know why, but something about that fog set me on edge. I decided to walk a bit, clear my head. My friend Chris, who'd woken up too, offered to join me. Might as well check out the trail, he said. Maybe get a head start for the sunrise hike. It was a dumb idea, but we were used to night hikes. We grabbed our bear spray and flashlights and headed eastward along the ridge. The trail snaked through dense evergreens. Every step felt muffled, the fog swallowing sound. Visibility was maybe 10 feet in any direction, our headlamps cutting through the white void. We had walked about half a mile when it happened. I heard something soft, like footsteps in the leaves. I turned around, expecting to see Chris behind me. But instead, there was a man, a stranger in the fog. I swear to God, he wasn't there a second before. One moment the trail was empty, the next he was just standing there. Motionless, silent. He was about 10 feet behind us, barely visible in the fog. No flashlight, no gear, just a thin t-shirt and jeans in below freezing temperatures. Jesus, Chris muttered, stepping back. Hey, I called out. You okay, man? Nothing. The stranger just stood there, staring. His face was blank, expressionless. Something about him felt wrong. Like he wasn't supposed to be there. Like he wasn't real. Where are you coming from? I tried again. Silence. Then, finally, in a low voice, he muttered, I don't know. Chris shot me a look. This was not normal. Where are you headed? I pressed. The man shifted slightly, but he didn't shiver, didn't even seem aware of how freezing it was. Then, in that same eerie tone, he whispered, I don't know. My stomach twisted. Something wasn't right. Then he said it. I'm being followed. My skin went ice cold. By what? His voice dropped lower. I can't see his face. I don't want to die. I stepped closer. You need help? There's a ranger station about 15 minutes down the trail, I told him. They can help you. He didn't react. Come on, I said, keeping my flashlight trained on him. We'll walk with you. They're following me. His whisper cut like a knife. Something I can't see its face. It's black. Like a man, but no face. I don't want to die. Who's following you? Where'd you come from? He lifted a shaking hand, pointing past me into the dark. There. It's always there. Hiding. I followed his finger. Nothing but fog. Listen, let's get you to the rangers. They'll... No. He stumbled back, wild-eyed. It'll follow. It'll find me. Before I could react, he bolted downhill, vanishing into the fog. We booked it back to camp, lungs burning. Woke Derek up, babbling about the guy and the thing. We radioed the rangers at 5 a.m. They promised to search. Dawn brought no relief. The rangers arrived at 7:30, their faces serious. The man was nowhere to be found. We tracked his footprints, but he had vanished. No body. No signs. Just no signs of him. We packed up fast, didn't even eat breakfast. Jessie kept glancing over her shoulder, muttering, "This place is cursed." Derek, didn't speak at all. The hike out felt longer, heavier. They never found him. The rangers said hikers sometimes go missing cold weather, wild animals, bad luck. But I don't think he was lost. I think he was hunted. That night was terrifying, and I still can't forget it. The man himself was unsettling. He talked in a strange, almost unnatural way. Even now, after what happened, I sometimes wake up sweating. The memory of that night still haunts me, and whenever I'm alone, just thinking about it makes me shiver.